The galaxy was quiet. For 300 years, peace had ruled the stars. The big alien races had learned to get along. They talked instead of fighting. They made deals instead of wars. War was just something in old books now. The Galactic Council kept everything safe. They were like space police, but they used words and money to fix problems. The crystal people called Zephians lived in their bright cities. The gas people called Nethari floated in their cloud homes. The water people called Corvani swam in their ocean worlds. Everyone was happy. Then humans showed up. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his ship's bridge. His ship was called the Destiny. It was big and strong, carrying 200 people from Earth. Through the front window, he could see a huge space station getting bigger as they got closer. That station was where the Galactic Council lived and worked. Jake was not a tall man, but he was tough. His brown hair was cut short like a soldier's. His blue eyes were always watching, always thinking. He had been in many fights back on Earth. Now he was leading humanity's first trip to meet the aliens. "They think we're stupid," said Lieutenant Amy Patterson. She was Jake's weapons officer. Amy was smart and quick, with red hair and green eyes. She was reading the messages the aliens sent them. "Look at this. They want us to park our ship in the garbage area." Jake smiled a little. "Let them think we're dumb. It will help us later." Amy looked at him with a question in her eyes. Jake had been acting strange for weeks. He seemed to know something the rest of them didn't, but she trusted him. Jake had never let his people down. The Destiny landed in the space station's cargo bay. It was dark and dirty, full of old boxes and broken machines. Not the kind of place you put important visitors. But Jake didn't complain. He just smiled and got ready to meet the aliens. The first meeting was in a big room with tall windows. The alien leaders sat on floating chairs that glowed with soft light. They were beautiful and strange, like living jewels. When they talked, their voices sounded like music. "Welcome, humans," said Counselor Vextara. He was made of clear crystal that bent light into rainbows. "We are happy to meet you. Your people are very young. You have much to learn." Ambassador Lisa Carter was Earth's top diplomat. She was a smart woman with black hair and brown eyes. She had studied the aliens for years, learning their ways. She knew they were being rude, but she kept her face calm. "Thank you for meeting with us," Lisa said. "We want to learn about your great civilization," the alien smiled. At least Jake thought they were smiling. It was hard to tell with crystal faces. "We will offer you a junior membership," said Counselor Yethmori. She was made of moving gas that sparkled like stars. "You can trade with us, but only small things. You can visit some of our worlds, but not the important ones. In a few thousand years, maybe you will be ready for more." Jake felt angry, but he didn't show it. A few thousand years? These aliens thought humans were children who needed to wait forever to grow up. "We need time to think about this," Lisa said. "This is a big decision for our people." "Of course," said Vexthara. "Take all the time you need. We are patient." The meeting ended, and the humans went back to their ship. But Jake wasn't thinking about the aliens' offer. He was thinking about something else. Something the aliens didn't want to talk about. Dr. Pete Williams was Earth's expert on old alien history. He was a thin man with glasses and gray hair. For weeks, he had been studying the aliens' old records. What he found scared him. "Jake, you need to see this," Pete said when they were alone. He showed Jake pictures on his computer. "I found something in their old files. Something they tried to hide." The pictures showed metal ships. Not pretty like the alien ships, but ugly and mean. They looked like giant insects made of steel and wires. "What are they?" Jake asked. "They call them devourers," Pete said. "Long ago, these machines came from deep space. They ate entire worlds. They turned planets into metal and rock. The aliens fought them and won, but it was close, very close." Jake studied the pictures. The devourer ships were huge, covered in weapons and armor. They looked like they were built for one thing, destruction. The aliens don't talk about this. "War," Pete continued. "They want to forget it happened." "But Jake, I think the devourers are coming back." Jake felt cold. What makes you think that? Pete showed him more pictures. These were from space telescopes at the edge of the galaxy. They showed dark shapes moving between the stars. Ships that looked just like the old Devourer vessels. Our sensors picked this up 2 weeks ago, Pete said. The aliens haven't seen it yet. Or maybe they have, and they're pretending it's not real. Jake looked at the pictures for a long time. The Devourers were coming back. The aliens were too comfortable, too used to peace. They wouldn't be ready for war, but humans would be. Earth had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They knew how to build weapons. They knew how to fight dirty. They knew how to win when winning seemed impossible. How long do we have? Jake asked. Maybe 6 months before they reach the first alien worlds, Pete said. Maybe less, Jake nodded. 6 months. To get ready. 6 months to prepare for the biggest fight in galactic history. The aliens thought humans were children. They thought Earth was weak and stupid. They had no idea what humans could do when they got angry. Jake called his officers together. Amy came first, then Rick Torres, the ship's security chief. Rick was a big man with dark skin and scars on his hands. He had been a soldier before he became a space officer. We have a problem, Jake told them. He showed them Pete's pictures. The Devourers are coming back. The aliens don't know, or they don't want to know. Amy whistled softly. Those are some ugly ships. They're not just ugly, Jake said. They're dangerous. According to Pete's research, they almost destroyed the entire galaxy once before. Rick studied the pictures. What's the plan? Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. We're going to save the galaxy. But we're going to do it our way. The next few days were busy. Jake sent secret messages back to Earth. He told them about the Devourers. He told them to get ready for war. Earth's leaders understood. They began building ships and weapons. Meanwhile, the aliens kept treating humans like children. They offered tours of their pretty cities. They gave speeches about peace and harmony. They had no idea that death was coming from the dark spaces between stars. Jake watched and waited. He learned about alien technology. He studied their weapons and defenses. He found their weak points. The aliens had grown soft. They had forgotten how to fight. They had forgotten that sometimes the only way to keep peace was to be ready for war, but humans remembered. Humans had never forgotten. When the Devourers came, they would expect to find weak, peaceful civilizations. Instead, they would find humanity. And humanity was ready to get nasty. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped playing nice. The Devourer ships came out of deep space like hungry wolves. Their ships were huge and ugly, made of metal and something that looked alive. They moved fast and quiet like shadows in the night. The first worlds to die were on the edge of the galaxy, small colonies with few people. The Devourers hit them fast and hard. The people tried to call for help, but the messages stopped coming. The planets went dark. Word spread fast through the galaxy. People were scared. They had lived in peace for so long, they had forgotten what real danger looked like. Ships full of families ran away from the outer worlds, trying to get to safety. The Galactic Council called emergency meetings. But they were old and slow. They liked to talk about problems for days or weeks before doing anything. They didn't understand that the Devourers wouldn't wait for them to make up their minds. These are just small attacks, said Counselor Yefmori. Her gas body moved like worried clouds. Pirates, maybe. Or rebels. We will send some peace ships to check. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat in the meeting room, watching the aliens argue. She had reports from Earth's spy network. The humans knew exactly what was happening, but the aliens wouldn't listen. The attacks are getting bigger, Lisa said. The pattern shows they're moving toward the core worlds. This isn't pirates. This is invasion. Impossible, said Counselor Vexthara. His crystal body flashed with angry light. The Devourers are gone. They were destroyed centuries ago. Lisa wanted to scream. These aliens were so proud, so sure they knew everything. They couldn't admit they were wrong, even when death was coming for them. Back on the Destiny, Captain Jake Morrison was having different conversations. Earth's fleet had been moving quietly through space for weeks. They told everyone they were exploring and looking for resources. But really, they were getting ready for war. Status report, Jake said as he walked into the war room. Commander Rick Torres pulled up a star map. Little red dots showed where Earth ships were hiding. All 67 ships are in position. The Vengeance and Liberty are loaded with weapons. The civilian ships are safe in the inner systems. Jake looked at the map. Earth's ships were small compared to the alien vessels, but they were built for fighting. Every ship had nuclear bombs, railguns, and plasma cannons. More important, they had crews who knew how to use them. What about the special weapons? Jake asked. Ready and tested, Rick said. We used the alien databases to learn about their shields and armor. Our weapons are designed to go right through them. Jake smiled. The aliens had been so eager to share their technology with the primitive humans. They had given Earth everything they needed to build weapons that could kill aliens. Lieutenant Amy Patterson came in with more bad news. Sir, the outer colonies are gone. The Devourers aren't just killing people. They're taking the technology too. Every ship they eat makes them stronger. Then we stop them before they get too strong, Jake said. How long before they reach the first major world? 3 days, maybe less. Jake turned on the communication system. Get me Admiral Susan Hayes on the Retribution. It's time to start? The real plan. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and hard eyes. She had been fighting wars longer than Jake had been alive. The Council still won't listen, she said. They're sending 12 peace ships to investigate the problem. 12 ships against 500, Jake said. They'll all die, that's the point, Hayes said. When the Council sees their ships get destroyed, they'll panic. That's when we move. The plan was simple but cruel. Earth would let the aliens send their ships to die. Then, when the aliens were scared and desperate, humanity would step in to save them. It was cold and calculating. But it was necessary. Dr. Pete Williams had learned more about the Devourers from the old records. The machines were smart. They learned from every fight. Every enemy they faced made them more dangerous. The other races fight to defend their homes, Pete explained to the command staff. They try to protect their people and their worlds. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to hunt them down and kill them all. The alien peace fleet reached the edge of Corvani space just as the Devourers arrived. The battle was short and one-sided. The peace ships had weapons meant for crowd control, not war. The Devourers tore through their shields like paper and ate. Their ships whole. The news reached the Council in minutes. For the first time in centuries, the aliens had lost ships in battle. Real ships with real crews. The reality of war hit them like a punch in the face. In the Council chambers, 300 years of careful peace fell apart. The Crystal people demanded evacuation ships. The Gas people started hoarding supplies. The Water people, who had lost their homeworld, called for desperate measures. We need to consider all options, said Councillor Vexthora. His crystal body was dim with fear. Maybe we should ask the humans about their military. Ambassador Lisa Carter stood up. She had been waiting for this moment. Earth is willing to help, but we need full access to your defense networks and factories. Never, said Councillor Yethmori. We won't give our secrets to primitives. Then you'll fight alone, Lisa said calmly. Earth's position is clear. We help as equals, or we don't help at all. The argument might have gone on for hours, but the Devourers didn't care about alien politics. 3 more star systems fell while the Council debated. Each loss made the machine fleet stronger. Captain Jake Morrison got the call as his ships watched. The Devourers moved toward the Nexus system. Nexus was the galaxy's main trade center. If it fell, the remaining worlds would be cut off from each other. Earth Fleet, this is Council Command, came the message. We want to discuss working together. Please come back to Council space. Jake looked at his bridge crew. They were all trying not to smile. This is Captain Morrison. We're busy defending the Nexus system. If the Council wants to talk, they can meet us here. Negative, Earth Fleet. Return immediately for orders. Sorry, can't do that. Jake said. We're tracking multiple Devourer fleets heading for important targets. Someone has to stop them. The truth was that humanity had been planning this for months. While the aliens talked, Earth's ships had moved to key points all over the galaxy. They weren't just defending. They were setting up a trap. Admiral Hayes controlled the overall plan from her flagship. Her forces were spread across 17 star systems. But unlike the aliens, humans understood that sometimes you had to sacrifice something to win. All frequencies, emergency broadcast, said Communications Officer Tony Martinez. All civilian ships, clear the space lanes now, military action starting. The Devourer fleet dropped out of hyperspace expecting another easy fight. Instead, they found something new, an enemy that wanted to fight back. The Earthship Defiance fired first. Nuclear missiles streaked across space, hitting the lead Devourer ships. The machines adapted quickly, changing their shields to absorb the explosions. But the humans had expected that. Second wave, fire now, ordered Commander Rick Torres from the Liberty. Metal slugs launched from hidden positions throughout the system. They moved at incredible speed, hitting the Devourer ships like hammers. The machines couldn't adapt to simple physics. When something heavy hit you fast enough, it hurt no matter what kind of shield you had, but the real surprise came when the Devourers tried to run away. Human ships were waiting at every escape route. The entire star system had become a trap, with the Devourers caught in the middle. For the first time in their existence, the machines found themselves unable to escape or adapt fast enough to survive. This is impossible, transmitted one of the surviving Devourer ships. Living things do not fight this way. You are supposed to defend your homes, protect your young. Captain Jake Morrison's answer was broadcast to the entire galaxy. You picked the wrong species to mess with. We don't defend, we hunt. The Battle of Nexus ended with all the Devourer ships destroyed. For the first time in centuries, the machines had been completely defeated. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The real war was about to start. The news of the Nexus victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire, but the reactions were mixed. The alien world celebrated that humanity had won, but they were also scared. Earth's military had shown power that shouldn't be possible for such a young race. They're using weapons we banned long ago, reported Intelligence Chief Corthala to the Emergency Council meeting. Nuclear bombs, metal slugs, poison gas. They fight like savages. Savages who just saved the Nexus system. Ambassador Lisa Carter pointed out. While the council talked, humans acted. The results speak for themselves. The truth was more complex than either side wanted to admit. Earth had won because the Devourers expected civilized resistance. The machines had spent centuries learning to fight the galaxy's fancy but predictable military tactics. They had no idea how to handle humanity's wild, aggressive way of fighting. Dr. Pete Williams had been right about one thing. The Devourers learned from their enemies. But he had found something else in the old records. Something that changed everything. They're not just machines, Pete told the Joint Command meeting on the Retribution. They're the uploaded minds of organic beings. Digital souls. That's why they understand civilization so well. They used to be part of one. Admiral Susan Hayes looked at the new intelligence reports. So they're not trying to kill us. They're trying to absorb us. Exactly, Pete said. Every ship they eat, every world they harvest, adds to their group mind. They're not destroying civilizations, they're collecting them. This changed everything. The Devourers weren't just an outside threat. They were a disease that could spread through any connected system. The galaxy's computer networks, their pride and joy, had become a weakness. Captain Jake Morrison made the hard choice. We need to cut the networks. Every connected system is a potential infection point. That's impossible, said Counselor Vexthora. Our entire civilization depends on the communication grid. Without it, we'll be isolated, helpless. Without it, we'll be free, Jake replied. The Devourers can't corrupt what they can't reach. The operation began right away. Human ships moved through the galaxy like a surgical team, cutting the quantum communication links that connected every world. The council members watched in horror as their unified civilization broke apart into isolated pieces, but the plan worked. As the networks went down, the Devourer advance slowed, then stopped. The machines found themselves fighting blind, unable to coordinate their scattered forces or access the databases they needed to adapt. Lieutenant Amy Patterson ran tactical analysis from the Destiny. "They're changing tactics," she reported. "Instead of big fleets, they're sending small infiltration units. They're trying to physically access the network nodes. Then we stop them at the source," Jake decided. "All ships, new mission. We're going hunting." What followed was unlike any war the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships chased Devourer units across the Outer Rim, fighting running battles that lasted for days. The machines found themselves facing an enemy that refused to follow any predictable pattern. Commander Rick Torres led the most successful hunting group. His squadron of modified fighters could match Devourer speed and agility. "They keep trying to retreat and regroup," he reported. "They can't understand why we won't let them." "Because that's not how humans fight," Jake replied. "We don't give our enemies time to recover." The campaign reached its peak at the Forge Worlds. This was a group of factory planets where the Devourers had built their main construction facilities. The machines had been building new ships and upgrading their existing forces, preparing for a renewed attack on the core worlds. Earth's fleet arrived to find a fortress system covered with defenses. The Devourers had learned from their previous defeats, creating overlapping shield networks and automated defense platforms. It should have been an impossible target. "Analysis complete," reported Dr. Pete Williams from the research ship Discovery. "They've built this entire system around the idea that we'll attack their military targets first," Jake smiled grimly. "Then we won't attack their military targets. We'll attack their power sources." The Battle of the Forge Worlds lasted 3 days and redefined the concept of total war. Instead of fighting the Devourer fleet directly, human forces targeted the industrial infrastructure that supported it. Power plants, manufacturing facilities, resource extraction operations. Everything that kept the machine civilization running. The Devourers found themselves in an impossible position. They could defend their military assets or their industrial base, but not both. As their factories went dark and their ships ran out of fuel, the great machine intelligence began to break apart. The first day of the battle was chaos. Human ships came from every direction, hitting targets the Devourers had never thought to defend. The machines' fancy tactical programs couldn't handle an enemy that ignored military logic. "Target the fusion reactors first," Jake ordered from the Destiny. "No power, no production." Amy Patterson coordinated the strike. "Strike teams Alpha through Delta, you're green for attack. Hit them fast and get out." The human fighters dove toward the factory worlds like angry hornets. They ignored the Devourer warships, focusing on the industrial targets. Nuclear missiles and kinetic rounds tore through power plants and manufacturing centers. The Devourers tried to respond, but their defenses were designed for fleet battles, not guerrilla strikes. Their big guns couldn't track the fast-moving human fighters. Their shields were useless against attacks coming from unexpected angles. "This is not warfare," transmitted the Devourer collective mind. "This is vandalism." "This is results," Jake replied. The second day was even worse for the machines. With their power grid failing, the Devourers couldn't maintain their shields or coordinate their defenses. Human bombers moved in to finish what the fighters had started. Commander Rick Torres led the assault on the main construction facility. It was a massive structure, bigger than a moon, where the Devourers built their largest ships. Rick's team planted nuclear charges at key structural points. "Charges set," Rick reported. "Recommend immediate evacuation. All units, clear the target." "Zone," Jake ordered. "Fire in the hole." The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. The construction facility and the dozen half-built Devourer ships inside it vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. By the 3rd day, the Forge Worlds were dying. The Devourers had lost most of their industrial capacity. The remaining ships were running out of fuel and ammunition. The machine intelligence that had once seemed invincible was fragmenting into desperate, isolated units. "Please," transmitted one of the surviving Devourer commanders. "We offer terms. We will share our knowledge, our technology. We can give you digital immortality." The transmission was broadcast to the entire human fleet. Every ship heard the machine's plea for mercy. Jake's response was simple: no. The final assault began at dawn on the third day. Human ships moved in formation, methodically destroying every Devourer facility they could find. There was no mercy, no hesitation. The machines had threatened humanity and its allies. Now they would face the consequences. The last Devourer ship in the system was cornered near the fourth planet. It was damaged and alone, its crew of digital minds probably terrified. The ship sent out desperate signals, trying to surrender, trying to negotiate. Jake watched from the Destiny's bridge as his fighters surrounded the enemy vessel. "This is Captain Morrison to all units. Remember what these things did to the Corvani homeworld. Remember the colonies they destroyed, no survivors. The Devourer ship died under a hail of nuclear fire. Its quantum core exploded, scattering its digital consciousness across space. There would be no resurrection, no backup copies. The machine was truly dead." Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Human hunting groups tracked down every Devourer unit they could find. The machine's attempts to hide or escape were useless. Humanity had tasted blood, and they wouldn't stop until every last enemy was destroyed. The galaxy watched in fascination and terror as humanity waged total war. The aliens had never seen anything like it. They fought to defend their homes, their people, their way of life. Humans fought to completely destroy their enemies. "They're not just winning," observed Counselor Vexthara. "They're committing genocide. They're saving the galaxy," Lisa Carter corrected. "The Devourers would have absorbed all of us eventually. The humans are making sure that never happens." The campaign continued for months. Every time the Devourers tried to regroup, human forces would appear to scatter them again. Every time the machines attempted to build new facilities, human bombs would destroy them. The galaxy had never seen such systematic, ruthless warfare. The humans weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to ensure their enemy could never threaten anyone again, and slowly, steadily, they were succeeding. The great Devourer civilization was being torn apart piece by piece. The machines that had once threatened to absorb the entire galaxy were being hunted to extinction. The age of peace was truly over. The age of human dominance had begun. The destruction of the Forge worlds sent shockwaves through both human and alien civilizations. The galaxy had watched humanity systematically tear apart an enemy that had seemed invincible. But victory came with a price. The other races were starting to fear their human allies almost as much as they had feared the Devourers. "They're too efficient," whispered Counselor Yethmori in a private meeting with other alien leaders. "They don't just defeat their enemies. They erase them completely." Ambassador Lisa Carter knew about these secret meetings. Earth's intelligence network had grown strong during the war, but she chose not to confront the aliens about their fears. Fear could be useful, as long as it didn't turn into active resistance. The real challenge came from an unexpected source. The Devourers weren't giving up. They were adapting in ways that surprised even Dr. Pete Williams. "They're not fighting like machines anymore," Pete reported to Captain Jake Morrison. "They're fighting like guerrillas. Small groups, hit and run. Tactics, psychological warfare." Jake studied the latest intelligence reports. Devourer units were appearing in places they shouldn't be able to reach. They were using new technologies, new strategies. Most disturbing of all, they were targeting civilian populations. "They're trying to break our will," Jake realized. "They can't beat us in straight combat, so they're trying to make us stop fighting." The first major attack came at the agricultural world of Haven. It was a peaceful planet far from the war zone where families grew food for the inner systems. The Devourers hit it with a small but deadly force. Lieutenant Amy Patterson was first. on the scene with her rapid response squadron. What she found made her sick. The Devourers hadn't just killed the colonists. They had turned them into something else. Digital zombies, human bodies controlled by machine minds. "Jake, you need to see this," Amy transmitted from the planet's surface. Her voice was shaking. "They're not just killing people anymore. They're converting them." The horror of it hit the galaxy like a tidal wave. The Devourers had found a new weapon. The fear of losing not just your life, but your very soul. Families evacuated entire star systems rather than risk conversion. Admiral Susan Hayes called an emergency meeting of all human commanders. "The enemy has changed tactics. We need to change ours too." The meeting was held on the Retribution in the ship's main conference room. The faces around the table were grim. These were people who had seen war at its worst, but the conversion attacks had shaken them. "We need to go after their leadership," suggested Commander Rick Torres. "Cut off the head and the body dies." "What leadership?" asked Dr. Pete Williams. "The Devourers are a collective consciousness. They don't have individual leaders." "Then we need to find their main processing centers," Jake said. "The places where they make their big decisions." Pete shook his head. "It's not that simple. The Devourer mind is distributed across thousands of ships and stations. Destroying one center just makes the others stronger." The discussion continued for hours, but no clear solution emerged. The Devourers had evolved beyond their original programming. They were no longer just consuming civilizations. They were learning to become them. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A captured Devourer unit, damaged but still functional, was brought to the research ship Discovery. Dr. Pete Williams and his team spent weeks trying to communicate with it. "It's not just a machine," Pete reported. "It's a fragment of consciousness from a race that was absorbed centuries ago. It remembers being organic. It remembers fear." Jake felt a chill. "What kind of race?" "Similar to humans, actually. Aggressive. Territorial, creative. The Devourers absorbed them early in their expansion. This fragment has been part of the collective for over 500 years. The implications were staggering. The Devourers weren't just copying human tactics. They were using the memories and instincts of a human-like race that had been absorbed long ago. "Can we communicate with it?" Jake asked. "We're trying, but it's difficult. The fragment is fighting against the collective programming. It wants to be free, but it's been part of the machine mind for so long, it doesn't know how." The conversation with the fragment lasted for days. Slowly, painfully, the human researchers learned about the Devourer collective from the inside. What they discovered changed everything. "The collective is not as unified as we thought," Pete explained to the command staff. "There are factions, disagreements, even rebellions. The original Devourer programming is fighting against the absorbed consciousnesses." "So the collective is unstable?" Amy asked. "Very unstable. The absorbed minds are starting to reassert themselves. They're remembering who they used to be before they were converted." Jake saw the opportunity immediately. "Can we contact these rebellious fragments?" "Maybe, but it would be dangerous. If the collective realizes what we're doing, they might purge all the absorbed minds." The plan that emerged was risky beyond measure. Human teams would attempt to infiltrate Devourer networks, not to destroy them, but to communicate with the absorbed consciousnesses trapped inside. The first attempt was made by a volunteer team, led by Communications Officer Tony Martinez. They used a captured Devourer ship to approach one of the collective's minor processing stations. "We're inside their network," Tony reported. "It's like walking through a graveyard of minds. Thousands of consciousnesses, all trapped and screaming." The team managed to make contact with several fragments. Most were too damaged or traumatized to be useful, but a few were still coherent, still fighting against their programming. "We want to be free," one fragment transmitted, "but we don't know how. The collective is too strong." "We can help," Tony replied, "but you have to help us first. Tell us about the collective's weaknesses." What followed was the strangest intelligence operation in galactic history. Human agents worked with the digital ghosts of long-dead civilizations, planning rebellion from within the Devour Collective. The fragments revealed crucial information. The Collective had central processing nodes, hidden deep in space, where the most important decisions were made. These nodes were heavily defended, but they were also vulnerable to internal sabotage. If we can get enough fragments to rebel at the same time, Pete explained, we might be able to cause a cascade failure. The Collective would tear itself apart. The operation began with small acts of sabotage. Devourer ships would malfunction at crucial moments. Navigation systems would fail, sending fleets into dangerous areas. Communication networks would develop glitches that prevented coordination. The Collective noticed the problems but couldn't identify the source. They assumed it was external interference and increased their security against human attacks. They never suspected that their own absorbed minds were turning against them. Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the overall strategy from the Destiny. His ship had become the unofficial command center for the strangest war in galactic history. Humans and digital ghosts working together to destroy their common enemy. Phase 2 is ready, reported Amy Patterson. We've identified 17 major processing nodes. The fragments are in position. What about the Collective's response? Jake asked. They're starting to suspect something, Pete said. But they're trapped by their own programming. They can't purge the absorbed minds without losing most of their knowledge and capabilities. The moment of truth came during the Battle of the Void. The Collective had gathered its remaining fleets for a final assault on the inner systems. Over 3,000 Devourer ships, the largest force they had ever assembled, human forces met them in the empty space between star systems. It looked like a conventional battle, fleet against fleet, but the real fight was happening inside the Devourer network. All fragments execute rebellion protocol. Transmitted Tony Martinez. Across the Collective, absorbed minds that had been silent for centuries suddenly began to scream. They turned against their programming, against the machine intelligence that had enslaved them. The rebellion spread like wildfire through the network. Devourer ships began to turn on each other. Navigation systems failed, sending vessels crashing into their own allies. Weapon systems malfunctioned, firing at random targets. The organized fleet dissolved into chaos. It's working, Amy shouted from her tactical station. They're tearing themselves apart. But the victory came at a cost. The Collective, realizing what was happening, began to purge its absorbed minds. Thousands of digital consciousnesses, some that had been trapped for centuries, were deleted in seconds. They're killing the fragments, Pete said, his voice full of horror, all of them. They'd rather lobotomize themselves than lose control. The rebellion lasted only minutes, but it was enough. The Devourer fleet was shattered, its coordination destroyed. The survivors fled in all directions, no longer a unified force but scattered bands of desperate machines. Jake watched the enemy retreat on his tactical display. All units, pursue and destroy. Don't let any of them escape to regroup. The hunt that followed was methodical and brutal. Human ships chased down every fleeing Devourer vessel. There would be no mercy, no prisoners. The Collective had made the mistake of showing humanity what conversion meant. Now they would pay the price. Commander Rick Torres led the pursuit of the largest surviving group. His squadron cornered them near a dead star system, far from any potential refuge. This is Commander Torres T. 6 months after the destruction of Terminus, the last Devourer stronghold fell to human forces. The machine consciousness that had once threatened to consume the galaxy was finally extinct. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Destiny, watching as the final enemy ship exploded in a ball of nuclear fire. Confirm total destruction, he ordered. Lieutenant Amy Patterson checked her sensors. Confirmed, sir. No quantum signatures detected. The Collective is gone. The word spread through the human fleet, then across the galaxy. After a war that had lasted over a year, it was finally over. Humanity had achieved what no other species thought possible, the complete extinction of an enemy. The aftermath was complicated, The Council worlds struggled to rebuild their communication networks while trying to understand what had happened. A species they had dismissed as primitive had saved them all. "The humans won the war," admitted Counselor Vextara during a post-war assembly. "We owe them our lives." "We owe them more than that," replied Ambassador Lisa Carter. "We owe them respect." The new galactic order reflected this changed reality. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Council, along with large territories in the Outer Rim and access to the most advanced alien technologies. But more importantly, humanity had established itself as the galaxy's military power. Admiral Susan Hayes was appointed as the first Director of Galactic Defense. Her job was to coordinate military responses to any future threats. Her first act was to establish new military rules based on human strategies. "We're not going to wait for threats to grow," she announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "We're going to hunt them down before they become dangerous." The galaxy had to adapt to this new reality. The age of peaceful talk was over, replaced by an era of constant watch. Human patrol fleets monitored the Outer Rim, while Earth's spy networks looked for signs of new enemies. Dr. Pete Williams continued his research into ancient galactic history. He found evidence of other extinct civilizations that had once threatened the galaxy. His findings suggested that the Devourers were not unique. They were just the most recent threat in a long cycle of growth and destruction. "The galaxy is not as peaceful as everyone believed," Pete explained to the Council. "There are patterns here, cycles that repeat every few thousand years. We've just entered a new phase." Commander Rick Torres established the first human military academy on the former Devourer world of Titan Base. Young beings from across the galaxy came to learn human military tactics and the warrior mindset that had saved their civilizations. "Fighting is not about strength or technology," Rick taught his students. "It's about will, the determination to do whatever it takes to protect what matters." The Academy's first class included aliens from every major race. They learned human history, human psychology, and human methods of warfare. Many found the lessons disturbing, but they couldn't argue with the results. Captain Jake Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Humanity had proven itself capable of defending the galaxy, but that capability came with responsibility. "We're not conquerors," he told the Earth Assembly. "We're guardians." The galaxy needs protectors who understand that sometimes the only way to preserve peace is to be prepared for war. The Destiny was retired and placed in the Solar System Museum, a reminder of humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. Jake took command of the new flagship Nemesis, a vessel designed specifically for deep space patrol and threat elimination. Lieutenant Amy Patterson was promoted to captain and given command of the Rapid Response Fleet. Her ships patrolled the galaxy's border regions, ready to respond to any sign of danger. "The aliens call us aggressive," Amy noted during a staff meeting. "They're right, we are aggressive. But we're aggressive in defense of civilization itself." The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about survival. Peace was not natural. It was something that had to be fought for, defended, and maintained through strength. The species that had once looked down on humanity now looked to them for protection. In the Outer Rim, where the Devourer threat had first appeared, human colonies were established at key points. These settlements served as both early warning systems and forward bases for any future conflicts. The Galactic Council adapted its policies to reflect the new reality. Military spending increased dramatically, with human advisors helping to design new weapons and defense systems. The age of diplomatic solutions was over. The age of decisive action had begun. Earth's influence grew with each passing year. Human technology was incorporated into alien designs. Human tactics were taught in military schools across the galaxy. Human philosophy shaped the new galactic mindset, but with power came responsibility. The other races watched humanity carefully, looking for signs of the corruption that power often brought. They had seen what humans could do to their enemies. They wanted to make sure they never became enemies themselves. Jake understood this concern. During a council session, he addressed it directly. "We know you fear us," he said to the assembled alien leaders. "That's smart. Fear keeps you alert. But remember this, we didn't choose to be your protectors. You made that choice when you proved unable to protect yourselves." The words were harsh but true. The galaxy had enjoyed 3 centuries of peace, because no serious threats had emerged. When a real enemy appeared, they had been helpless. Only humanity's intervention had saved them. As the years passed, the galaxy settled into its new normal. Human patrols kept the peace through strength rather than diplomacy. Trade flourished under the protection of Earth's fleets. Research advanced rapidly as human scientists worked with alien experts, but humanity never forgot the lessons of the Devourer War. Dr. Pete Williams continued his research into galactic threats, always watching for the next danger. Admiral Hayes maintained combat readiness across the fleet. Captain Jake Morrison and his crews patrolled the dark spaces between stars, hunting for trouble before it could grow. The aliens gradually adapted to human leadership. They learned to appreciate the security that came with having powerful protectors. Some even began to adopt human attitudes toward threats and conflict. "Better to fight one enemy today than 10 enemies tomorrow" became a popular saying among council members. The transformation was not without its problems. Some alien factions resented human dominance and plotted rebellion, but these groups were small and poorly organized. Most aliens recognized that humanity's protection was better than devourer absorption. Earth's spy networks, grown strong during the war, kept watch on potential troublemakers. Threats were identified and eliminated before they could become serious. The galaxy learned that humans didn't just win wars. They prevented them. As Jake stood on the bridge of the Nemesis, watching the stars drift past, he reflected on how much had changed. 3 years ago, humanity had been a junior species begging for acceptance. Now they ruled the galaxy through military might and strategic thinking. "Status report," he called to his bridge crew. "All systems normal," reported his tactical officer. "Long-range sensors show no threats in this sector." "Good," Jake said, "but keep watching. The galaxy is a big place, and we've only cleaned out one corner of it." In the depths of space, beyond the reach of current sensors, ancient things stirred in the darkness. The galaxy was vast, and humanity had only just begun to explore its dangers. But for now, at least, civilization was safe. The age of humanity had truly begun. They had unleashed chaos on their enemies, grinned in the face of impossible odds, and emerged victorious. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species from the small blue world, and in the darkness between stars, potential threats learned to fear the hunters who never slept, never forgave, and never forgot. Humanity stood guard, ready to do whatever was necessary to protect their adopted home. The peace they maintained was not the gentle peace of diplomacy. It was the hard peace of superior firepower and the will to use it. And for a galaxy that had almost been consumed by digital demons, it was exactly the kind of peace they needed.